Maybe you've had a long day. Maybe you've carried quiet worries in your heart, or felt the pull of many voices and many tasks. But now, the night is drawn near. The world is softening into stillness, and this moment is yours. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your breath move in and out like a slow tide. Let the day begin to fade gently behind you. Tonight, we travel to Bethlehem, not to the days of the manger, but to a quieter chapter, wrapped in the gentle hush of harvest fields and evening lamps. We walk with Ruth, a woman whose story is not marked by thunder or miracles, but by faithfulness, kindness, and the quiet leading of God's hand. Her journey is steady, humble, soft enough to be heard in the stillness. This story reminds us that even when life seems ordinary, even when we feel small or unseen, God is weaving something meaningful and filled with purpose. So settle into the quiet. Feel the warmth of the covers. Let your breath deepen. Like wheat swaying in a calm evening breeze, let your heart be moved slowly and gently. Tonight, we will wander through simple moments of hope, devotion, and divine grace, drawn from the book of Ruth. Close your eyes if you'd like. Let peace settle around you, and let us begin. Fact 1. Ruth begins with sorrow, yet it is a story of hope. Naomi loses her husband and both of her sons while living in a foreign land. Her heart is heavy, and she believes life has become empty. Yet even in this grief, God is quietly preparing a new beginning. When Ruth chooses to stay by Naomi's side, love becomes the doorway through which healing will come. Sometimes hope blooms gently, long before we can see it. Fact 2. Ruth's devotion is soft but powerful. She says, "Where you go, I will go." These words are not loud or dramatic. They are steady, like a hand held firmly in love. Ruth chooses loyalty over comfort, compassion over fear. Her journey teaches us that God's presence can be felt most strongly in our choices to love one another, especially when love asks us to stay. Fact 3. Bethlehem, the town Ruth walks toward, means house of bread. It is a place of provision, of nourishment, of homecoming. Ruth does not know what awaits her there, yet she walks forward with quiet trust. Sometimes we step into the unknown, carrying only faith, and that is enough. For God often guides us gently, one small step at a time, toward places of renewed life. Fact 4. When Naomi and Ruth arrive in Bethlehem, the town is in the midst of the barley harvest. Barley is the first grain to ripen in the season, a quiet symbol of new beginnings. The fields would have glowed golden beneath the warm sun, the air filled with the soft rustle of grain swaying in gentle rhythm. Ruth does not enter as someone expected or celebrated. She walks into a place where she is unknown, a foreigner, a widow, with little to offer, but her willingness to work and her devotion to Naomi. Yet God has a way of turning small steps of humility into pathways of blessing. Ruth simply begins where she is, with the work in front of her, and grace flows softly from there. Fact 5. Ruth goes to glean in the fields, gathering the leftover stalks after the harvesters have passed through. This was a practice God instructed in His law. The corners of fields were not to be harvested completely, so that the poor and the stranger could find what they needed to live. Even in the laws of the land, God had woven mercy. Ruth bends low to the earth, gathering grain piece by piece, slow and steady. It is not glamorous work. It is not easy, but there is dignity in it. Quiet, persistent care. Sometimes God's provision does not arrive all at once. Sometimes it comes as handfuls of grace, gathered gently through patience, trust, and small, faithful steps. Ruth receives her daily bread through a rhythm of humble endurance. Fact 6. It is in these very fields that Ruth encounters Boaz, a man of honor, kindness, and gentle strength. He notices her not because she calls attention to herself, but because her faithfulness speaks softly for her. Boaz blesses her, saying, "May the Lord repay you for what you have done." His words are spoken with compassion, not pity, with respect, not distance. In a world that can feel harsh or hurried, Boaz represents the quiet kindness that reflects God's heart, the kind of love that sees, protects, and honors the vulnerable. Ruth had left everything familiar behind, yet here, in this field, she is seen. She is valued. She is safe. And her story begins to unfold in gentle light. Fact 7. Boaz does not simply speak kindly. He acts kindly. He instructs his workers to let Ruth glean freely, to not trouble her, and even to leave extra stalks where she can easily find them. This kindness is quiet, thoughtful, and full of gentleness. It is the kind of goodness that does not announce itself, but simply is, like morning light slowly filling a room. Ruth has known loss. She has known uncertainty. But now, in Boaz's field, she experiences care that is steady and unforced. Sometimes God meets us not in grand miracles, but in the soft kindness of another person. A voice that welcomes, a hand that gives, a space made safe. And the heart begins to rest again. Fact 8. When Ruth returns to Naomi with the grain she has gathered, Naomi is surprised, not just by the amount, but by the blessing behind it. She learns Ruth has gleaned in the field of Boaz, a relative, a man who could become a redeemer. A redeemer was someone who could restore what had been lost in a family: land, inheritance, stability, the future. In one day, hope begins to stir again. The same Naomi who once said, "Call me bitter," now feels something warm, a spark of possibility. God does not rush her healing. He simply allows light to gently return, like dawn rising slowly over hills. Sometimes our hearts reopen gradually, not with thunder, but with a quiet change, a realization that perhaps we are not as alone as we feared. Fact 9. Ruth continues working in the fields through the entire season, through long warm days of bending low, gathering grain, and returning home to Naomi. Her devotion is not a moment, but a rhythm. Love expressed not in grand gestures, but in daily faithfulness. There is beauty in showing up, even when life feels uncertain. There is holy strength in the ordinary. Ruth's work becomes a prayer, steady, gentle, offering her heart to God through every small task. And God, who sees what is quiet and unseen, is shaping her future with care. Blessings often unfold slowly, not all at once, like a story being written with soft strokes of grace. And Ruth walks in that grace with humility and trust. Fact 10. As the harvest season draws to a close, Naomi sees a path unfolding, one that Ruth does not yet see for herself. Naomi has known love, loss, and the long ache of waiting. But now she senses God's quiet movement. She gently guides Ruth to seek Boaz's protection as a redeemer. Naomi's advice is tender, thoughtful, rooted in care. And Ruth listens with trust, just as she has walked beside her from the beginning. There is a sacred beauty in women supporting one another through seasons of uncertainty. One offering wisdom shaped by hardship, the other offering loyalty shaped by love. Sometimes God's guidance comes not in visions or signs, but in the soft wisdom of someone who has walked a difficult road and survived its winter. Fact 11. Ruth goes to the threshing floor, where Boaz is resting after the final harvest. The night is still. The stars stretch wide across the quiet sky. Ruth approaches with humility, laying quietly at Boaz's feet, a gesture of trust, a request for covering. She does not demand. She does not hurry. Her posture is one of peace and respect. When Boaz awakens, he does not respond with confusion or judgment. Instead, he blesses her, calling her actions honorable and pure. He promises to do what is right, to protect and care for her. There, in the hush of night, without an audience or spectacle, two hearts are knit together by kindness and mutual honor. Sometimes the most sacred moments happen in stillness, whispered, gentle, unseen. Fact 12. But there is another relative closer in line to redeem Ruth and Naomi's family. Boaz could have let this cause fear or disappointment, yet he chooses patience and righteousness. Love, when grounded in God, does not rush or grasp. It trusts the right timing. Boaz meets with the elders of the town at the city gate, a place where decisions are made with dignity and witness. With honesty and clarity, the matter is resolved. The right to redeem is offered to Boaz, and he chooses Ruth, openly, joyfully, with honor. Ruth, once a stranger, once a widow gathering grain in humble silence, is now welcomed into a future shaped by love, stability, and gentle grace. God lifts her, life slowly, with tenderness, from sorrow into peace. Often, the greatest transformations are quiet, unfolding one faithful step at a time. Fact 13. Ruth and Boaz are joined together, not through drama or urgency, but through kindness and intention. Their story is not a tale of sudden romance or sweeping gestures. It is steady, quiet, rooted in respect. Boaz does not take Ruth for granted. He honors her. Ruth does not seek gain. She seeks to care for Naomi and to walk in faith. Together, they reflect a love grown from character rather than circumstance. This teaches us something gentle and profound. Sometimes love blooms slowly, like wheat ripening in the sun, quietly, steadily, beautifully. A love grounded in faith and honor becomes a shelter, a safe place, a home. And God delights in love that grows this way, not in haste, but in peace, guided by trust and grace. Fact 14. Ruth, once a stranger in Bethlehem, becomes part of the very heart of the community. What began as a journey of uncertainty has become a story of belonging. She who gathered remnants in the fields now stands in the center of blessing. The town's women speak words of joy over Naomi too. For through Ruth, her life has been restored. The woman who once called herself empty now finds her arms full of renewed purpose. This is the quiet tenderness of God. He does not forget the grieving. He does not overlook the weary. He gathers the threads of sorrow and weaves them into new beginnings. No pain is wasted in his hands. No tears fall unnoticed. What feels like an ending may, in his time, become the beginning of something more beautiful than we could have imagined. Fact 15. Ruth and Boaz have a son, and his name is Obed. The child is placed in Naomi's arms, and joy folds around her like warm light after a long night. The community blesses this child, declaring him a sign of God's goodness. And in time, Obed will have a son named Jesse, and Jesse will have a son named David, the shepherd, the psalm singer, the king. And from David's line will come the Christ. Jesus himself, the Redeemer of the world, will trace his earthly lineage back to Ruth, the foreigner who chose love, and Boaz, the man of gentle strength. This is the wonder. God builds eternity out of ordinary faithfulness. A field, a handful of grain, a soft-spoken promise, a child held in loving arms. He shapes redemption through hearts that choose kindness, even when life is quiet and unsure. Fact 16. The Book of Ruth reminds us that ordinary days can be holy. Nothing in this story is loud or dramatic. There are no earthquakes, no parting seas, no pillars of fire. Instead, the story is shaped by meals prepared, fields gleaned, conversations spoken softly, and choices made quietly in the heart. And yet, God is there in every moment. Sometimes we think we must do something great or impressive to honor God, but Ruth teaches us another way: to love faithfully, to show kindness, to do the work before us with humility, to remain gentle even in grief. In these simple acts, heaven touches earth. The sacred is often found not in the extraordinary, but in the ordinary, offered with love. Fact 17. Ruth's courage is tender, not loud. She does not lead armies or speak before crowds. She simply keeps choosing love, day after day. True courage is not always the fire that roars. Sometimes it is the small, steady flame that refuses to go out. Ruth leaves her homeland, her culture, her language, and steps into a world she does not know, not for gain, but for devotion. Courage can look like staying when it is easier to leave. It can look like walking forward when the future is uncertain. It can look like kindness in a world that has known both hunger and heartbreak. Her courage whispers to us in the quiet night. You do not have to be loud to be strong. You do not have to be seen to be held by God. Your quiet faith is noticed. Your gentle steps are honored. Fact 18. Naomi's healing unfolds slowly, like dawn stretching across the horizon. At first, she cannot see hope, only loss. Her heart feels heavy, her name bitter upon her own tongue. But God does not ask her to heal quickly. He does not rush her grief. He simply stays near. Through Ruth's companionship, through Boaz's kindness, through fields of golden grain and days of gathering simple provision, Naomi is slowly restored. Her joy returns not all at once, but softly, like light seeping into a shadowed room. Hope is often like this: quiet, gradual, gentle. It returns when we do not realize it is returning, until suddenly we find ourselves breathing easier, smiling again, warmed from within. Naomi's story reminds us, God can cradle a wounded heart until it learns how to open again. Fact 19. Boaz shows us that strength can be tender. His power is not loud, not forceful, not demanding attention. It is the strength of someone who listens, who protects, who honors. Boaz uses what he has, his land, his position, his voice, not to elevate himself, but to lift someone else. This is what true strength looks like in God's story. Strength that shelters rather than controls. Strength that welcomes rather than intimidates. Strength that gives rather than takes. Boaz stands as a gentle reminder that goodness is powerful and kindness is mighty. In a world that often mistakes loudness for leadership, his life whispers that compassion is a form of courage and mercy is a form of greatness. Fact 20. The fields where Ruth gleaned were not just places of labor. They were places of encounter and transformation. Fields are open, spacious, touched by wind and sunlight. They remind us of the quiet work God does in open spaces of the heart. Ruth did not find her future in a palace or courtroom, but among stalks of barley, in the gentle rhythm of gathering grain. Sometimes we look for meaning in grand changes, dramatic signs, or sudden breakthroughs. But often, God meets us in the everyday. In the kitchen, at the workplace, in conversation, in small offerings of care. The field becomes a sanctuary because Ruth walks through it with hope and humility. Where you walk with God, even ordinary ground becomes holy. Fact 21. The women of Bethlehem play a quiet but beautiful role in Ruth's story. They witness Naomi's sorrow, her return, her slow healing. They do not rush her grief. They simply remain near, a community holding space. And when Obed is born, it is these women who speak blessing. Their voices carry warmth, shared joy, and gentle affirmation. Sometimes, healing arrives through a community that surrounds us softly, not fixing, not solving, simply being present. In their blessing, they proclaim Naomi is not empty, not forgotten, not alone. Their words restore her name to meaning and her heart to peace. It reminds us that spoken kindness holds power. A gentle word can be like sunlight to a weary soul. A blessing can become a doorway through which hope re-enters a life. Fact 22. Ruth's story reminds us that belonging does not depend on where we were born. She was a Moabite, a foreigner, from a place often seen as distant and different from Israel. Yet God welcomed her into the heart of his story. We sometimes feel like outsiders, different, unseen, unsure if we fit. But Ruth's journey tells us that God's family is shaped not by birth, but by love, faith, and the willingness to walk with him. Where we begin is not where God leaves us. He gathers us from all places, all stories, all histories. He weaves us into his purposes, into communities, into families of faith. You, too, are not on the outside. You are seen. You belong. There is a place for you at God's table, just as there was for Ruth. Fact 23. The name Ruth is often understood to mean compassionate friend. The meaning itself reflects her spirit, gentle, loyal, loving without condition. In a world that can sometimes forget the value of quiet loyalty, Ruth reminds us that faithfulness is holy. She does not speak many words in the story. Her heart is revealed through her actions. She stays. She works. She listens. She cares. Compassion does not always look like dramatic rescue or impressive sacrifice. Sometimes it looks like making a meal, sitting beside someone who is grieving, walking with someone through an uncertain future. Ruth teaches us that compassion is not loud. It is steady. It is love that holds on gently, even when the road is long. Fact 24. The story of Ruth unfolds during the time of the Judges, a period in Israel's history known for chaos, conflict, and spiritual wandering. But in the midst of that turmoil, the book of Ruth is a quiet meadow, a place of peace and tenderness. It is as if God is whispering, even in troubled times, love is still possible. Goodness still grows. Faithfulness still matters. Sometimes the world around us feels loud and unsettled. But Ruth's story reminds us that God is not limited by the noise. He works in small homes, in small fields, in small acts of care. And from those gentle places, he shapes redemption. Peace can rise in the middle of difficulty. Hope can bloom in the middle of uncertainty. And grace can flow in the quiet corners of our lives. Fact 25. Ruth's story shows us that God works through steps, not leaps. Her life changes not through sudden miracles, but through small faithfulness. One journey, one field, one conversation, one act of kindness at a time. We often look for transformation in the dramatic. The prayers answered instantly, the path revealed all at once. But Ruth teaches us that God's grace frequently unfolds slowly, like the slow turning of seasons. We are guided gently, not rushed. We are shaped steadily, not forced. And as we look back later, we see how each small step led us toward blessing. Your story, too, is being formed quietly. Each day has meaning, even the ordinary ones, especially the ordinary ones. Fact 26. The relationship between Ruth and Naomi is one of the most tender pictures of love in Scripture. They are not bound by blood, but by choice. Not by obligation, but by devotion. Their love is rooted in presence, in being there when life is heavy, when the road is uncertain, when the future is clouded. This kind of love does not demand or expect. It simply stays. They walk through grief together. They share what they have. They hold each other's hope when one cannot hold it alone. This reminds us that God often reveals himself through human companionship. When someone stays beside you in your season of sorrow, that too is divine grace. We were not made to journey alone. Love is sometimes the very voice of God, spoken softly through another heart. Fact 27. Ruth's place in the genealogy of Jesus is not accidental. It is intentional. God chose her story to be woven into the story of the Messiah. This reveals something comforting. God values the gentle-hearted. He honors the ones who choose kindness in quiet places. He sees the ones who feel small, foreign, unseen, or ordinary. Ruth did not know her faithfulness would echo through centuries. She simply lived with love, one day at a time. And yet, the Savior of the world came through her line. This is the whisper of her story. Your life has meaning greater than you can see right now. Your kindness reaches farther than you know. Your faithfulness is never wasted. God is doing more with your life than you realize. Quietly, beautifully, tenderly. Fact 28. Ruth's journey teaches us that God can turn pain into purpose without erasing the past. Naomi and Ruth carry real grief that shaped them deeply. Their story does not pretend the loss never happened. Instead, God weaves meaning through it. The sorrow is not discarded. It becomes the soil from which new life grows. In the same way, your pain is not a wasted chapter. It is part of your becoming, not your ending. God is able to bring beauty from what once felt broken. He does not rush your healing, nor does he require you to pretend your wounds never existed. He simply stays near, shaping hope gently inside your heart. Like a seed waiting beneath the earth, hope awakens slowly, but it does awaken. Fact 29. In Ruth's story, silence plays a sacred role. There are long stretches where nothing dramatic is spoken, no visions are recorded, no angel descends, just quiet days, quiet work, quiet faith. But silence does not mean absence. Silence can be the space where God is working most tenderly. When the heart grows still enough, we notice things we once overlooked, small kindnesses, gentle provisions, moments of unexpected peace. If your life feels quiet right now, if the answers are slow, if the waiting is long, know that God often moves in whispers. He is teaching your soul to hear him, not in thunder, but in the soft breath of the everyday. Silence can be holy ground. Fact 30. The book of Ruth ends not with a farewell, but with a legacy. It closes with a genealogy, a list of names connecting Ruth's child to King David and ultimately to Jesus. To some, a genealogy may seem simple, even plain, but it is a reminder that God sees beyond the moment we are standing in. He is telling a story much larger than one lifetime. Your life, too, is part of a greater weaving, a story that stretches beyond what your eyes can see. Every act of kindness echoes. Every choice to love carries forward. Every seed of faith becomes part of something eternal. You are not small in God's story. You are necessary, and he is holding your place with intention and love. Fact 31. Ruth's story shows us that loyalty is a sacred language. Her devotion to Naomi was not loud or dramatic. It was lived in footsteps, in shared meals, in the quiet presence of staying. Loyalty is the love that remains when life becomes unfamiliar. It is choosing to walk beside another, even when the path is steep or uncertain. Many people will stand with you in seasons of joy, but loyalty stays through the shadows, the unknown, the long journey home. God honors loyalty because it reflects his own heart. He is the God who does not leave, the God who accompanies. Just as Ruth walked with Naomi, God walks with you. You do not travel your seasons alone. He is beside you, step by gentle step. Fact 32. The fields of Bethlehem were places of provision and restoration. When Ruth first entered those fields, she came as someone with nothing. No land, no status, no certainty. She bent low to gather leftover grain, piece by piece. But over time, the fields that once symbolized need became the very place where God restored her future. This is how grace often moves. It meets us where we are empty and fills us slowly, gently, faithfully. Sometimes we begin in places of lack, emotionally, spiritually, financially, or in our sense of belonging, and it may feel like we are simply gathering fragments. But God is present in the fragments. He is building something whole from what feels small. The field of your effort today may yet become the field of your blessing tomorrow. Fact 33. Ruth is one of the few women directly named in the genealogy of Jesus, and her presence there is intentional and profound. Of all the stories God could choose to highlight in the lineage of Christ, he chose a story of gentle faithfulness, quiet courage, and steadfast love. This reminds us that the kingdom of God is not built on fame or loud achievement. It grows through hearts that choose kindness in the shadows, hope in the unknown, and faith in the quiet places of life. Your worth is not measured by how visible your efforts are. God sees every unseen act of love. He remembers every tear, every prayer, every choice to remain gentle, and he weaves those choices into eternity. Just like Ruth, your quiet faith is shaping a story far greater than you can see. Fact 34. The book of Ruth shows us that God is present in transitions, those in between seasons when we feel neither where we once were nor yet where we are going. Ruth and Naomi traveled between lands, between identities, between grief and hope. Transitions can feel uncertain. We may not know what comes next or how things will unfold. Yet God walks closest in those threshold moments, the ones where the heart feels tender and open. He guides the next step, though we cannot see the entire path. He holds what once was, and he holds what is to come. In the sacred middle space, the space Ruth walked in, God is shaping a future that is gentle, steady, and full of promise, even if we cannot yet see it. Fact 35. Ruth's choice to glean in the fields each day teaches us the holiness of persistent faithfulness. Her work was simple, repetitive, and physically tiring. But it was done with a willing spirit and a steady heart. Sometimes the most meaningful parts of our journey are not the moments that feel extraordinary, but the quiet daily steps of showing up with love. There is dignity in small work done with devotion. There is beauty in choosing to care even when life feels heavy. Ruth's days were not filled with excitement, but they were filled with purpose. Your life is meaningful, not because of grandeur, but because of the love and presence you bring to each day. The small things, when done in faith, are precious to God. Fact 36. Boaz's blessing over Ruth reflects the kind gaze of God. He speaks to her with gentleness, saying that she has found refuge under the wings of the Lord. This imagery is soft and comforting, like a bird sheltering its young beneath warm feathers, safe from wind and storm. God's protection is not harsh or forceful. It is tender, close, and reassuring. Sometimes we long for safety, for something strong to hold us. And God offers that safety, but not through walls or defenses. He offers it through His nearness, His presence, His love surrounding us like a quiet shelter. Ruth found home in God before she found home in Boaz. And we too find rest first in His presence, not in circumstance, but in the gentle covering of His love. Fact 37. Ruth's story reminds us that hope can return slowly, like the first light of dawn. When Naomi came back to Bethlehem, she felt empty and unseen. Her loss weighed heavily on her spirit. But God did not meet her with sudden joy or immediate restoration. He let hope rise softly, through Ruth's companionship, through daily provision, through small signs of kindness. Hope is not always a bright blaze. Sometimes it begins as a warm flicker, something fragile, almost hidden, but alive. If your hope feels faint, it is still hope. Even a small flame can guide the way. And God guards small flames tenderly. He shelters them until they grow strong enough to shine again. Fact 38. Boaz does not simply redeem Ruth. He honors her. He does not treat her as someone in need of rescue, but as someone of great worth. He speaks to her with respect. He welcomes her into a lineage with dignity and blessing. This teaches us that true love lifts another person closer to who they are meant to be. It does not possess or control or overshadow. It nurtures and protects. It makes room for growth, for identity, for joy. In Boaz's actions, we see a reflection of the Redeemer to come, Christ, who does not merely save His children, but restores their dignity, calling them beloved, treasured, cherished. Love is not merely rescue. Love is recognition. Ruth was always valuable. Boaz simply saw it and honored it. Fact 39. The birth of Obed marks the healing of a family line, not just the joy of a single home. This child becomes a bridge between past sorrow and future promise. Naomi holds him close, her arms no longer empty, her heart no longer naming itself bitter. This moment does not erase what was lost, but it transforms the meaning of the journey. Sometimes God does not erase our wounds. He weaves them into something that allows compassion, wisdom, and gentleness to deepen. Naomi's joy is not a return to who she once was. It is the birth of someone new, someone shaped by both sorrow and grace. In this tender picture, a grandmother holding a child promised through faithful love, we see that God restores softly, beautifully, and in His own perfect time. Fact 40. The book of Ruth teaches us that God is present in our beginnings, but also in our returns. Naomi left Bethlehem during famine, a season of desperation and survival. But when she returned, it was not triumph that brought her home. It was weariness. Sometimes we return to a place, a calling, or a truth, not in strength, but in need. Yet God welcomes us just the same. He is not only the God of the journey forward, He is the God of the journey back. Homecoming, in Scripture, is always wrapped in grace. Even when we return empty, God receives us with gentle hands, ready to fill what has been poured out and restore what has been worn thin. His love waits for us, patient and steady. Fact 41. The elders of Bethlehem bless Ruth and Boaz, saying that Ruth should be like Rachel and Leah, the mothers of Israel. this blessing is significant. Ruth, once considered an outsider, is now spoken of in the same breath as the matriarchs of the faith. This shows us that God's story is not limited by human categories, not by nationality, background, status, or past. He calls whom he chooses. He honors the humble. He lifts those who trust him in quiet ways. You do not need to have a loud voice, a prominent place, or a perfect history to be part of God's unfolding grace. He sees the heart. He receives the willing. The world may label, but God renames. And his names are always rooted in belonging, purpose, and love. Fact 42. Ruth's story is woven with gentle, everyday acts of love that have eternal impact. She held Naomi through grief. She worked long days in the fields. She listened. She trusted. She remained. None of these moments seemed dramatic while they were happening. They were simply life, lived with care. And yet, these moments shaped a lineage, a kingdom, a savior. This tells us something profoundly comforting. Your quiet acts of goodness are not small in God's eyes. The love you offer today, the patient word, the gentle response, the decision to stay kind, is part of something larger than you can see. God builds eternity out of moments like these. He weaves glory from the ordinary. And the soft love you carry in your heart matters more than you know. Fact 43. One of the quiet wonders of Ruth's story is how God guides through ordinary choices. There are no visions, no thunderous announcements, no obvious miracles. Instead, the story unfolds through conversations, meals, work, travel, and decisions of the heart. Ruth chooses to stay. Boaz chooses to be kind. Naomi chooses to hope again. Each choice seems small, yet each becomes a step in a divine tapestry. This reminds us that our lives do not need to be dramatic to be meaningful. You do not have to feel extraordinary to be held in God's purpose. Even your smallest acts of love, the gentle word, the patient gesture, the moment you choose compassion over fear, are part of a quiet, holy story being written with care. God works softly, yet nothing he touches is small. Fact 44. Ruth's story shows us the power of staying when leaving is easier. She could have returned to Moab, to familiarity, to what she already understood. Staying took courage, the kind that does not announce itself, but lives quietly in the heart. There are seasons when we too must decide whether to remain in love, in faith, in commitment, even when the future is uncertain. Ruth's courage did not come from knowing the outcome. It came from choosing love over fear. And this is courage in its purest form. The courage to stay, to trust the unseen, to walk with God one step at a time without needing answers all at once. Her journey tells us what you choose in love today may blossom into blessings far beyond your sight. Fact 45. The character of Boaz reminds us that kindness is a form of leadership. He does not need to impress, command, or prove himself. His strength is expressed in gentleness, in how he speaks, how he treats his workers, how he protects Ruth, how he honors Naomi's family line. This kind of leadership reflects the heart of Christ, who also leads through compassion, humility, and care. True strength listens. True strength shelters. True strength uplifts. Boaz teaches us that greatness is not shown in being above others, but in serving them with grace. When you choose to be gentle in a world that often forgets gentleness, you are living the strength of God. Your kindness is powerful. Your compassion has weight. Your tenderness reflects heaven. Fact 46. The story of Ruth teaches us that God can bring new life from places that once felt empty. Naomi believed her story was over. She believed her life had no more joy to offer. She could not imagine a future that didn't ache. But God was already working, gently, patiently, tenderly, not by erasing her pain, but by walking her through it. Restoration came slowly, the way spring returns to a field that has known winter. The earth remains quiet for a long time before green begins to show. So it is with the heart. If you feel like your life has lost color or meaning, know that God can restore what once felt forever lost. Not all at once, but softly, like a dawn unfolding. Fact 47. Ruth's willingness to glean is a reminder that receiving provision can be just as holy as giving it. There are seasons in life when we gather for others, when we are strong, capable, generous. And there are seasons when we must gather what others have left, when we are tired, grieving, learning how to begin again. Both are sacred. Both are honored by God. Ruth was not less beloved when she was gathering grain from the edges of fields. She was not less valued when her hands were tired or her steps slow. God's love does not depend on our strength or our productivity. He is with us in abundance, and He is with us in the gleaning seasons too. You are loved in your weakness as deeply as in your strength. Fact 48. Boaz's field becomes more than a place of work. It becomes a place of refuge. Refuge is not only safety, it is peace. It is the kind of peace that allows the heart to rest, the mind to soften, the spirit to breathe again. Boaz makes space for Ruth, just as God makes space for us. He does not require her to earn her worth. He simply recognizes it. Refuge is when someone sees your humanity without asking you to be more than you are in this moment. God offers this shelter to every soul, a quiet place beneath His care where you are allowed to breathe, to heal, to simply be. Ruth found refuge in a field of barley. You can find refuge in the presence of God, who keeps watch over you with steady love. Fact 49. Ruth's story reminds us that our past does not define our future. She came from Moab, a place often viewed with suspicion and distance by Israel. She had experienced loss, grief, and uncertainty. Yet none of these things disqualified her from being woven into God's plan. God does not look at where we have been to determine where we may go. He looks at the heart, the quiet love, the gentle strength, the faithful spirit that stays open even when life has been difficult. Ruth carried no titles and performed no dramatic miracles. She simply lived with devotion and kindness. And from that tenderness, God shaped a legacy of redemption. Your story is not limited by your mistakes, your history, or your wounds. God can write beauty from every chapter you have lived. Fact 50. The moment Ruth lays at Boaz's feet on the threshing floor is often misunderstood. But it is a gesture of trust and covenant, not of desperation. Her posture says, "I place my life under your protection." It is a request for shelter, not ownership, for companionship, not rescue. And Boaz responds not with haste or assumption, but with honor. He protects her dignity. He guards her story. He makes sure everything is done with transparency and blessing. This moment teaches us that sacred relationships are built not on fear, pressure, or haste, but on mutual respect and patient love. The most beautiful connections grow slowly, gently, thoughtfully. God's timing is tender. And when love is rooted in Him, it unfolds in peace, not in striving. Fact 51. We are now halfway through our pilgrimage. Imagine yourself sitting in a quiet field at dusk, the sky painted in soft gold and violet. Hear the rustle of grain around you, the earth warm beneath your resting hands. This is where Ruth once stood, between sorrow and hope, between what was lost and what would be born anew. Take a slow breath in and let it fall gently out. You do not need to hurry. You are allowed to rest. The story of Ruth moves slowly because healing moves slowly. Life unfolds not in leaps, but in soft steps. And God is not rushing you. He is walking beside you at the pace your heart can bear. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your thoughts float like soft clouds moving across the night. You are safe. You are held. You are loved. In your quiet places, God is there, shaping something tender and true. Fact 52. Ruth's faith was not loud. It was lived. She did not speak many declarations or grand prayers in Scripture. Instead, her belief in God was revealed through her steps, her work, and her perseverance. Sometimes, faith is not something we say, but something we walk. Faith is continuing to rise each day, even when the future is unclear. Faith is staying gentle when life has been hard. Faith is choosing love, again and again, in ordinary moments. Ruth trusted God without knowing how her story would unfold. She simply placed one foot in front of the other, guided by devotion. Your faith, too, does not need to be dramatic to be real. If your heart is leaning toward God, even quietly, you are walking in faith. Fact 53. The threshing floor, where Ruth and Boaz shared their quiet, tender conversation, symbolizes separation and transformation. Grain was crushed to release what was nourishing from what was no longer needed. In our own lives, there are seasons where God gently separates what is good for us from what cannot stay. These seasons may feel tender, vulnerable, or uncertain, just as Ruth must have felt beneath the open night sky. Yet it is often there, in the quiet places of surrender, that God's voice becomes clearest. The threshing floor was not a place of loss. It was a place of becoming. Something new was forming, something whole, something sacred, something steady. Sometimes it is in our most humble moments that the next chapter of grace begins. Fact 54. Boaz's promise to Ruth, "I will do for you all that you ask," reflects the faithfulness of God. He does not offer empty words. He does not rush. He takes every step with integrity, ensuring that Ruth's dignity is protected and her future is secure. This gentle assurance mirrors how God cares for those who trust Him. He does not forget. He does not delay without purpose. He acts with intention, wisdom, and compassion. There are times when we may feel unseen or uncertain about what lies ahead. But like Ruth, we are held in hands that are steady and kind. God's provision is not hurried, but it is sure. What He begins, He completes. And He completes it with love. Fact 55. Ruth's story reminds us that faithfulness often looks like patience, not the rushed kind of patience that waits while clenching its jaw, but the deep, quiet kind that trusts God even when the timing is slow. Ruth gleaned day after day through fields and heat and sweat. She did not know what the future would hold. She simply stayed present, offering her hands and her heart to each moment. This is the patience of the soul, the patience that does not demand answers before it walks. Sometimes, the most holy thing you can do is simply continue. Continue breathing. Continue showing kindness. Continue rising each morning, even without clarity. God works wonders through patient hearts, hearts that move slowly, gently, without rushing His grace. Fact 56. The story of Ruth is also a story about provision that aligns with purpose. God did not only give Ruth food, He gave her belonging. He did not only give her shelter, He gave her family. His blessings went deeper than survival. They reached into identity and future. Sometimes we pray only for what we need to get through the day: strength, peace, resources. And God gently provides these things. But He also sees the deeper hunger of our hearts, the desire to be known, to be valued, to be rooted, to be loved. Ruth did not just receive grain from the fields, she received a place in the story of redemption. This is how God loves. He provides for the body, yes, but He also restores the soul. He nurtures both the hands and the heart. Fact 57. Naomi's blessing at the end of the story is a testament to God's faithfulness over time. She once said, "The Lord has dealt bitterly with me." She felt overlooked, forgotten, left with nothing. But in the end, she is surrounded by community, by love, and by the gentle laughter of a child held in her arms. Not every season is one of fullness. Some are planted with tears. Some are quiet fields of waiting. But God is present in every season, planting, nourishing, preparing. Restoration rarely comes quickly, but when it arrives, it comes with tenderness, like morning warmth after a long night. Naomi's story tells us that God does not abandon what He loves. Even when the heart feels empty, He is already preparing the next bloom. Fact 58. The book of Ruth shows us that kindness is a language God speaks fluently. It is kindness that moves the story forward. Ruth's kindness to Naomi, Boaz's kindness to Ruth, Naomi's blessing spoken with new hope. None of these acts are grand gestures. They are simple, thoughtful, human. A shared meal, a gentle word, a field left open for someone in need. Kindness is a quiet seed, planted softly, but it grows into something strong enough to shape futures. When the world feels heavy, kindness can feel small. But in the hands of God, kindness becomes powerful. Every gentle act, every warm word, every patient love echoes into eternity. Your kindness matters more than you know. Fact 59. The presence of God in Ruth's story is constant but subtle. There are no thunderous miracles or dramatic revelations. Instead, we see God in timing. We see Him in open fields. We see Him in friendship. We see Him in provision that arrives just as the heart needs it. God's quiet work is sometimes easier to see in hindsight, when we look back and realize how every step led us here. You may not always feel His nearness. You may not always see clear signs. But God is steady, even in silence. He is guiding in the background, weaving soft threads of grace through your days. His presence does not always need to be loud to be real. It can be gentle, like breath, like light, like a hand resting quietly over your heart. Fact 60. What makes Ruth's story so comforting is that it is a story of ordinary life touched by extraordinary grace. There is no throne room here, no battlefield, no spectacle, just fields, homes, harvests, and shared meals. And yet, this simple life becomes the doorway through which God brings forth a lineage of salvation. This reminds us that your ordinary days are not small. The conversations you have, the meals you share, the kindness you offer, the prayers spoken in quiet rooms. All of these moments form the foundation of grace in your life. You are living a story sacred in its simplicity. God is in the ordinary. He is in the familiar. He is in the slow pace of each day. Your life is already unfolding in His hands, with purpose and with love. Fact 61. Ruth teaches us that love can be quiet and still powerful. Her love did not need to shout or prove itself. It was a steady presence, a gentle devotion shown through every step of her journey with Naomi. Sometimes we think love must be grand to matter, that it must be poetic, dramatic, overwhelming. But the heart of love is steadiness. It is presence. It is choosing someone again and again with patience and tenderness. Love that stays, even when life shifts, even when sorrow comes, even when the road is uncertain, is a reflection of God's own love. He does not leave when we are tired or lost. He remains, just as Ruth remained. Quiet love is enduring love. It changes everything, softly. Fact 62. The story of Ruth is also a story of courage expressed through gentleness. Her courage was not fierce or loud. She did not confront armies or call down signs from heaven. Her courage was the courage to begin again, to leave what was familiar, to trust a God she had only just come to know, to step into fields of strangers and gather grain under the sun. Courage is sometimes found in the person who wakes up and continues living with grace, in the one who keeps going, even when grief lingers, in the one whose heart has been hurt, but still chooses compassion. If you have continued through difficult days, you are courageous. If you have loved after loss, you are brave. Ruth's courage whispers to you now. Strength and softness can exist together, and both are holy. Fact 63. Boaz's role in the story shows us that mercy is a choice. He did not have to welcome Ruth. He did not have to speak gently to her. He did not have to extend protection or provision. Yet he did, because his heart was shaped by kindness. Mercy flows from seeing others the way God sees them. Beloved, valued, worthy of care. When Boaz blessed Ruth, he blessed Naomi. When he offered refuge, he offered restoration. One act of compassion can ripple into many lives. You may not realize how far your kindness reaches, but mercy never ends with the one who receives it. It flows outward. God's love moves through gentle hearts. Your softness is not weakness. It is strength wrapped in compassion, the kind that heals. Fact 64. The story of Ruth shows us that God cares for the vulnerable. Ruth was a widow, a foreigner, and a woman without worldly protection. In many cultures of that time, all three of these things could leave someone unseen, unheard, or unvalued. But God's heart always bends toward those who feel small or overlooked. He placed laws in Israel to protect the stranger, the widow, and the poor. And he wove Ruth's story to show that his love is not distant or theoretical. It is personal. It is tender. It is near. If you have ever felt unseen, Ruth's story whispers this truth. God sees you. If you have ever felt without a place, Ruth's journey says, you belong. In God's eyes, you are never forgotten. You are cherished. Fact 65. Naomi's transformation is a story of the heart learning to hope again. When she returned to Bethlehem, she saw herself only through her sorrow. She renamed herself bitter, believing joy had left her forever. But God was not done writing her story. Healing didn't happen all at once. It happened through companionship, through the rhythm of ordinary days, through the warmth of shared meals, through kindness growing slowly like grain in a field. This is how healing often arrives, not suddenly, but in small ways over time. One day, we realize the sadness no longer fills every corner of our heart. Light has returned, softly, gradually. Naomi's life teaches us that it is okay to grieve. It is okay to feel lost. And it is also okay to hope again when your heart is ready. Fact 66. Boaz's willingness to redeem Ruth is a reflection of God's redeeming love. To redeem means to restore what was lost, to protect what is vulnerable, to rebuild what has fallen apart. Boaz steps into this role with gentleness, integrity, and honor. He does not see Ruth as someone broken, but as someone precious. This is how God sees us. He does not turn away from our losses, our uncertainties, or our weaknesses. He steps toward us with compassion. He gathers the parts of our lives that feel scattered. He restores. He lifts. He heals. He calls us his own. Ruth's redemption is a shadow of the greater redemption to come, the one who gathers every soul into the safety of his love. You are held by that same love now and always. Fact is 67. The women of Bethlehem, who stood near Naomi, play a quiet but meaningful role in Ruth's story. They were the ones who saw her leave in sorrow and return in grief. They did not rush her healing. They simply stayed present, bearing witness to her loss, her return, her restoration. When Obed was born, they spoke blessing with voices full of warmth and faith. Their presence reminds us that healing does not always come through advice or solutions. Sometimes it comes through companionship. There are moments in life when just having others near us, steady and gentle, is the gift that allows the heart to breathe again. Community, when rooted in tenderness, becomes a reflection of God's own embrace. We heal more softly when we are not alone. Fact 68. Ruth's life is a reminder that love is often a journey, not a moment. Her love for Naomi did not end with words spoken on the road. It continued through every step on the journey to Bethlehem, through every day of gleaning, through sleepless nights of uncertainty. Love is not only a feeling, it is a choice lived out day by day. And love grows deeper through small, consistent acts of care. The quiet cup of water, the shared meal, the gentle hand, the willingness to stay. This kind of love shapes the soul, both the one who offers it and the one who receives it. Ruth's story teaches us that love need not be dramatic to be holy. It can be steady, simple, soft, and still change the world. Fact 69. Boaz greets his workers in the fields by saying, "The Lord be with you." And they respond, "The Lord bless you." This small detail reveals the tone of his life, one of peace, respect, and shared faith. The fields he oversaw were not places of tension or fear, but places of mutual kindness. This teaches us something tender about the environments God desires us to cultivate. Spaces where hearts can rest, where voices speak gently, where dignity is honored. Peace is not merely the absence of conflict, it is the presence of compassion. When we speak softly, when we bless instead of demand, when we choose gentleness over hurry, we create fields where others can breathe, just as Ruth breathed in the fields of Boaz. You too can be a field of peace for others, simply by being kind. Fact 70. Ruth's story shows us the beauty of choosing trust when the future is unknown. She did not know where the road to Bethlehem would lead. She did not know how the people would receive her. She did not know whether her work in the fields would be enough to provide. And yet, she walked forward with a quiet trust, not because she understood God completely, but because she sensed his presence near. Sometimes, trust is not certainty. Trust is the willingness to take a single gentle step into the unknown, believing that God is already there waiting. You do not need to see the entire path. You only need to take one soft step at a time. God will meet you with care along the way, just as he met Ruth. Fact 71. The book of Ruth teaches us that our lives are deeply connected to one another. Ruth's kindness to Naomi reached into generations she would never live to see. Boaz's compassion shaped a legacy that would give rise to kings and to Christ. Naomi's wisdom helped guide Ruth toward a future filled with peace. Our lives naturally ripple outward, touching hearts, shaping stories, forming futures. You may not see the full impact of your love today, but that does not make it small. Every gentle act, every soft word, every moment of patience leaves a trace of hope in the world. You are part of a tapestry that stretches far beyond your own years. Your tenderness matters, not only for today, but for all that will unfold because of it. Fact 72. Ruth's story is one of restoration, not to what was before, but to something new. She did not return to her old home, her old life, or her old identity. The restoration she received was not a return to the past. It was a new beginning born from love. This is important. God does not always bring us back to what we once had. Sometimes He leads us to something different, something deeper, something shaped by everything we have walked through. Healing does not erase the journey, it transforms it. Your future will not be a repeat of what has been. It will be something new that honors where you have been while gently guiding you forward. Like Ruth, you are being led into a life touched by grace, a new chapter unfolding softly at just the right time. Fact 73. Ruth's journey shows us that God works in ways that feel natural, not forced. Nothing in her story is rushed. Each moment unfolds with a gentle rhythm, the kind that mirrors the pace of growing things. Seeds do not bloom in a day. Healing does not happen in an instant. Relationships deepen over time, through sincerity and presence. Ruth did not have to chase her destiny. She simply walked faithfully through each day, gathering grain, speaking kindly, staying close to those she loved. God's guidance does not always feel dramatic. Often, it feels like peace in a single step. When the heart moves in alignment with love, the path becomes clear, little by little. You do not need to arrive quickly. You simply need to remain tender and willing to move forward gently. Fact 74. The love between Ruth and Boaz is a love built on mutual honor. Boaz never speaks over Ruth, never directs her story, never takes from her. He listens, he protects, he uplifts, and Ruth responds not with fear or uncertainty, but with trust and openness. This is love as God designs it. Not possession, but partnership. Not control, but compassion. Not urgency, but patience. When two souls meet in truth and kindness, love does not need to rush. It grows quietly, like fruit ripening in sunlight. This teaches us what holy relationships look like, spaces where each heart is safe, cherished, and seen. Spaces where gentleness is stronger than demand, where care is given freely, where love rests like a warm lamp glowing softly in the dark. Fact 75. Ruth's son, Obed, is a symbol of new beginnings born from past wounds. Naomi holds him in her arms, and her heart remembers every tear she shed, every mile she walked, every night she thought joy was gone forever. Yet here, in the warmth of this child, she sees that God was with her all along, not erasing her grief, but guiding her through it. The child is not a replacement for what was lost. He is a reminder that love can return in forms we did not expect. Life changes shape, but it continues. Healing comes quietly, through new connections, new hope, new light. What once felt empty now holds blessing. What once felt bitter now tastes of grace. God does not forget the sorrow we have carried. He transforms it into something tender and true. Fact 76. Ruth's story teaches us that faithfulness in small things shapes destiny. When Ruth gleaned in the fields, she gathered grain piece by piece, small handfuls, gathered slowly. Nothing about the work looked grand. Nothing about the moment hinted at history unfolding. Yet those gentle acts of care, those simple steps taken each day, opened the way to love, provision, and legacy. We sometimes wait for large moments to feel purposeful, but God often works through the humble choices, the kindness offered quietly, the patience practiced in silence, the love shown when no one is watching. You do not need to accomplish something great to be part of God's story. You already are, in every gentle act that flows from your heart. Fact 77. The bond between Ruth and Naomi is a picture of love that chooses presence over answers. Ruth could not remove Naomi's grief. She could not replace her loss. She could not explain the meaning of the pain, but she could stay. And sometimes, staying is the greatest gift love can offer. Ruth walked beside Naomi when Naomi could not walk and hope for herself. She became the steady warmth at Naomi's side, a reminder that sorrow does not have to be endured alone. There are seasons when we cannot fix or solve, but we can sit close, breathe gently, and whisper, "I am here." In that kind of presence, God's love becomes visible. You do not need the right words to offer comfort. Your quiet presence is already a prayer. Fact 78. The book of Ruth takes place during the barley harvest, a symbol of spiritual nourishment and renewal. Barley is the first grain to ripen, arriving just after the long winter. It is the first sign that the earth is still alive, still generous, still held in God's care. Ruth arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of this harvest, a quiet hint that her story was stepping into a season of new beginning. God often speaks in signs like these, not loud, not overwhelming, but gentle, symbolic, softly understood by the heart. Perhaps your life, too, is beginning to shift into its own quiet harvest season, not in sudden change, but in subtle warmth, in renewed hope, in tenderness returning. Newness comes softly, like barley ripening beneath spring sunlight. Fact 79. Ruth's story reminds us that God is present even when his name is not spoken often. Unlike other books of scripture filled with visions or prophetic declarations, Ruth's story is simple and quiet. Yet God is there in every detail. In the timing of Ruth entering Boaz's field, in the provision left purposely at the edges for the poor, in the hearts that choose kindness over self-interest. This teaches us that God does not need dramatic signs to be near. He is near in conversation. He is near in daily work. He is near in the warmth of companionship and the gentle unfolding of days. Sometimes the holiest moments in life arrive without fanfare, just a quiet assurance resting in the heart. God is with you now, in this stillness, in this breath, in this night of soft reflection. Fact 80. Boaz's story shows that righteousness can be ordinary and still extraordinary. He did not perform miracles. He did not slay giants. He did not lead armies. He simply lived with honor, consistently, patiently, faithfully. He treated his workers with dignity. He welcomed the outsider. He protected the vulnerable. He acted with humility, not ambition. This is the quiet greatness that heaven cherishes. In a world that often measures success by what is loud or seen, Ruth and Boaz remind us that character is what builds legacies. Your gentle goodness, the kind that doesn't demand attention, is not unnoticed by God. He delights in those who live kindly, who speak softly, who move with compassion. You do not need to be magnificent to be meaningful. You only need to be faithful in love. Fact 81. The union of Ruth and Boaz is more than a marriage. It is a picture of divine restoration woven through human tenderness. Two souls touched by loss come together, not to replace what was lost, but to build something new and whole. Their love is not born out of grand passion or sudden drama. It grows like dawn, slowly brightening the horizon. Sometimes love arrives this way, quietly, gently, naturally, as though God Himself is guiding hearts together, piece by piece. Love that comes from God is patient. It does not rush, force, or overwhelm. It unfolds like wheat rising in the field, steady and sure. Ruth and Boaz remind us that love rooted in faithfulness becomes a sanctuary, a place where hearts can rest, heal, and grow. Fact 82. Ruth's presence in the lineage of King David reminds us that God honors humility in powerful ways. David, Israel's beloved shepherd king, did not come from a line of warriors, nobles, or scholars. He came from a lineage shaped by faithfulness, compassion, and quiet love. Ruth's tenderness lived on in him, in the songs he wrote, in the prayers he prayed, in the depth of feeling that shaped his heart for God. This teaches us that what we nurture in our hearts today can bless generations beyond us. Kindness does not fade. Faith does not disappear. Love does not stop at our lifetime. It ripples forward. The legacy you are forming, even now, through gentle choices and sincere care, will reach further than your eyes can see. You are shaping tomorrow through the love you offer today. Fact 83. Ruth's identity changes throughout her journey, but it always changes through love and belonging, not force. She begins as a Moabite woman outside the community of Israel. She becomes a companion to Naomi, a gleaner in Bethlehem's fields, a woman welcomed into the protection of Boaz, and finally, a mother and ancestor of kings. Her identity unfolds layer by layer, like petals opening in sunlight. God does not rush identity. He lets it grow with time, experience, tenderness, and grace. Nothing about who you are meant to become will be forced or hurried. It will unfold as you walk with Him, gently, naturally, beautifully. You are not who you were before your sorrow, and you are not yet who you are becoming. You are in the sacred space in between, and that space is holy ground. Fact 84. The book of Ruth ends not with a farewell, but with a genealogy, a list of names quietly carrying the story forward. This closing reminds us that God's work often continues even when we cannot see it. The story does not end when the chapter closes. The grace that has begun keeps moving. Your story, too, is still unfolding. Even in the quiet, even in the stillness of night, even when it feels like nothing is changing. God is always writing beyond what we can see. What feels unfinished to you is still being formed with care. You are living in the middle of God's gentle, ongoing redemption. One breath, one step, one soft dawn at a time. Fact 85. Ruth's story reminds us that God is attentive to the details of our lives. Nothing in her journey happens by chance. Not the field she chooses to glean in. Not the season of harvest she arrives in. Not the people whose hearts align with compassion. Every moment unfolds with quiet intention. God does not simply guide nations and kings. He guides footsteps, conversations, and the smallest motions of the heart. Your life, too, is held with this kind of care. There are gentle alignments happening around you even now. Connections being formed. Healing beginning beneath the surface. Provision moving toward you. at a pace that matches your readiness. You are not unseen. You are not uncovered. God's guidance is present in the subtle spaces, the ones so quiet you may not notice until you look back and realize He was there all along. Fact 86. The book of Ruth shows us that gentleness can carry great strength. Ruth is gentle, yet her loyalty is unwavering. Boaz is gentle, yet his integrity shapes generations. Naomi is wounded, yet she remains wise, steady, and open to redemption. Strength does not need to shout. Strength does not need to harden. True strength knows how to remain soft in a world that teaches us to close. When you choose to speak kindly instead of harshly, that is strength. When you choose forgiveness instead of bitterness, that is strength. When you continue to love after loss, that is strength. God's strength is not loud or forceful. It is steady, patient, and everlasting. And that strength is shaping you in ways you may not yet realize. Fact 87. Ruth's story is a story of belonging rediscovered. She left her homeland, her culture, and her familiar world, stepping into uncertainty, guided only by love. In Bethlehem, she did not know if she would be welcomed. Yet slowly, gently, she was woven into the community, not through demands, but through kindness and sincerity. Belonging is not something we seize. It is something we grow into, one tender day at a time. If you have ever felt like you were searching for your place, your people, or your purpose, take heart. Belonging is not lost to you. It is being formed quietly, often in ways you do not yet see. Your heart is being led into spaces where it will be understood, valued, and embraced, just as Ruth was welcomed. Home. Fact 88. Ruth's story shows us that healing often begins when we allow ourselves to receive love. There are seasons when we feel we must carry everything alone, when the heart grows weary from being strong for too long. Ruth had lost much. Naomi had lost much. Yet when Boaz and the community welcomed them, they allowed themselves to be loved again. Healing does not always begin with action. Sometimes it begins with openness, a willingness to let kindness touch us, a willingness to be seen, a willingness to soften. You do not need to earn love. You do not need to prove your worthiness. Sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is simply let ourselves be held by God, by others, by gentleness. Receiving love is not weakness. It is a sacred return to your own belovedness. Fact 89. The book of Ruth teaches us that God works through relationships to restore what was broken. Not just romantic love, but friendship, family, companionship, and community. Naomi and Ruth heal together. Boaz enters as a protector and partner. The women of Bethlehem surround them with blessing and support. We are not made to heal alone. The heart is restored in safe company, in shared meals, shared tears, shared joys. If you have walked through seasons of loneliness, know that God is still drawing people toward your journey. Kind souls who will understand you, gentle hearts who will walk beside you at your pace. Love does not rush in. It arrives in time. Your story is not meant to be lived in isolation. There are connections forming, either now or soon, that will feel like sunlight returning. Fact 90. Ruth's story is also a story of God redeeming the ordinary rhythms of life. Work, rest, harvest, meals, conversations. Nothing spectacular happens overnight, yet holiness fills every moment. This reminds us that the sacred is not somewhere far away. It is right here, in the breath you are taking now. The small tasks of your day, the quiet thoughts of your heart, the gentle ways you move through the world. These are the places where God dwells. You do not need to chase something dramatic to encounter Him. He is the warmth in your chest, the calm that begins to settle, the peace that rises like dawn. Holiness is already around you. Rest in it. Breathe in it. You are living in sacred space, even now. Fact 91. Ruth's story teaches us that faith grows in companionship. Ruth and Naomi walked together, not simply out of obligation, but out of shared trust, even in sorrow. They prayed together, ate together, and faced the unknown together. In their grief, they became each other's shelter. Faith is often nurtured in the presence of someone who simply stays, someone who doesn't try to explain or correct or solve, someone who just offers presence. When faith feels fragile, the companionship of another can steady us. This is why God places us in communities, friendships, and families of the heart. Not to avoid pain, but to make it bearable. You were not created to walk alone. Someone's presence has been a blessing to you, and your presence is a blessing to someone else. Your company is a form of grace. Fact 92. Ruth's willingness to leave her homeland shows us that God sometimes calls us into new seasons of identity. She stepped away from everything familiar. Her language, her customs, her childhood memories. Not because she knew what waited ahead, but because love guided her steps. There are times in life when who we have been must gently give way to who we are becoming. Growth often begins in unfamiliar spaces, the places where we do not yet know the rhythm or feel fully settled. And that uncertainty is sacred because it means the heart is stretching, opening, expanding. If you feel yourself in a season where you are no longer who you were, but not yet who you are becoming, be gentle with yourself. You are in the tender corridor of transformation. God is shaping you with care, one quiet day at a time. You are growing, even if you cannot see the form of it yet. Fact 93. The provision Ruth received in Boaz's field reflects God's understanding of our needs before we speak them. Ruth did not have to ask for protection. Boaz instructed his workers to watch over her. She did not have to request extra grain. Boaz told them to leave handfuls for her intentionally. This is a picture of God's heart. He anticipates what we need before we have the words to form the prayer. His care is thoughtful, detailed, gentle. Even now, provision is moving toward your life. Not only what you must have to survive, but what your heart needs to feel safe, welcomed, valued at home. God is already preparing blessings in small and tender ways, like grain scattered lovingly along your path. Your only task is to step gently forward and receive. Fact 94. Ruth's story reminds us that God is always writing more than we can see. When Ruth chose to accompany Naomi, she did not know that her footsteps were part of the lineage of kings. When she gleaned grain in the fields, she did not know the land would one day be her home. When she lay at Boaz's feet in humility, she did not know her life was being woven into the ancestry of Christ Himself. We only see the moment we are in, but God sees the tapestry from beginning to eternity. You may not understand the purpose of the chapter you are living right now. It may feel small, confusing, quiet, or unfinished. Yet God is already shaping what flows from it. He wastes nothing. Every step, every tear, every gentle act of love is part of something meaningful and sacred. Fact 95. Naomi's journey teaches us that God honors honesty in seasons of sorrow. She did not hide her grief. She did not pretend to be strong. She spoke her pain openly, naming her sadness, acknowledging her loss. And God did not rebuke her. He did not pull away. He stayed near, weaving healing through companionship, provision, and time. There is room in faith for lament. There is room in love for sorrow. You do not need to silence your pain to be close to God. He meets you in the honesty of your heart, in the sigh you release when you are tired, in the tear that falls quietly while no one is watching, in the longing you cannot put into words. Your grief is not a barrier to Him. It is the place where He comes closest. Fact 96. Boaz's protection of Ruth teaches us that love creates safe spaces. He does not rush her. He does not pressure her. He does not demand or possess. He simply provides room for her heart to breathe. This is the essence of love shaped by God. It makes space. Space to heal. Space to hope. Space to grow slowly. Love does not confine. It shelters. It does not overwhelm. It nurtures. It does not take. It offers. Love that reflects, God will always feel like rest. A soft place for the weary soul. A quiet warmth where the heart no longer needs to defend itself. This is the love God offers you. Steady, safe, and ever-present. A love that holds you gently, exactly where you are. Fact 97. The book of Ruth shows us that God's redemption is both personal and generational. Ruth and Naomi's hearts were restored in their lifetime. Their loneliness, uncertainty, and grief gently transformed into safety, belonging, and love. But their story did not end there. The child born to Ruth became the grandfather of David. And from David's line came Christ, the Redeemer of the world. This means that the love and healing God brings to you does not stop with you. It touches those around you. It flows into the lives of those who will come after you. The forgiveness you choose today, the tenderness you offer, the faith you nurture, these become part of a story that continues beyond your sight. Your healing ripples onward. Your hope plants seeds in futures you may never see. You are living a story that stretches into eternity, shaped by the God who redeems all things with love. Fact 98. Ruth's journey reassures us that our deepest bonds are often chosen, not inherited. Ruth and Naomi were not connected by blood, but by love. Their bond was formed in sorrow, strengthened in travel, and sustained through trust. Family in Scripture is not defined only by ancestry. It is defined by covenant, commitment, and compassion. This means that the people who walk with you, who listen when your voice is soft, who understand the language of your heart, they too are family. You are allowed to belong wherever love holds you, and you are allowed to claim as family the souls who help you breathe easier. Love forms kinship deeper than blood. You are not limited to the relationships you were born into. You are free to build a family of the heart, just as Ruth did. Fact 99. The quiet joy at the end of Ruth's story is gentle, enduring peace, not loud celebration. There is laughter, yes, and blessing and warmth. But the tone is soft, steady, complete. This is the kind of peace God gives after long seasons of sorrow. Not a burst of excitement, but a deep, steady restfulness that settles into the soul. The kind that lets you exhale fully. The kind that allows the heart to trust again. The kind that feels like sitting beside someone you love, with no need for words. This peace is not hurried. It does not demand attention. It simply is, like the quiet glow of a lamp in a familiar room, like the warmth of a hand resting gently over yours. This is the peace God is leading you toward. Soft, steady, lasting peace. Fact 100. The story of Ruth reveals that every life, even the quietest, has sacred purpose. Ruth did not set out to shape history. She did not seek recognition, legacy, or greatness. She simply chose love, day after day. She stayed when it would have been easier to leave. She worked quietly, faithfully, with a heart open to God's gentle leading. And through her softness, God wrote redemption into the world. This is the mystery of God's love. He does not require power or perfection. He moves through tenderness, through kindness, through steady devotion. Your quiet life is not small. Your care is not unnoticed. Your patience is not wasted. God is weaving your story with the same loving intention He gave to Ruth, slowly, beautifully, and with eternal meaning. The love you choose today will echo into generations you may never see, and God is pleased with you, just as you are. And now, beloved soul, the journey through Ruth's story gently comes to its close. You have walked beside Naomi and Ruth through sorrow and uncertainty, through journeys across unfamiliar lands, through fields of barley warmed by morning sun, through footsteps of patience and unfolding kindness. You have witnessed the quiet strength of love, a love that does not demand or shout, but stays, listens, and holds. You have seen how God works without rushing, without forcing, without loudness, how He shapes destiny through the smallest moments, a shared meal, a gentle word, hands gathering grain, a quiet promise whispered beneath the stars. And now, the same God who guided Ruth is guiding you. The same God who restored Naomi's joy is restoring yours. The same God who sheltered Ruth beneath His wings is covering you now, softly, tenderly, completely. So as you rest now, let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift like wheat swaying in a warm evening breeze. Let every part of you release the weight of the day. You do not need to solve anything tonight. You do not need to be strong. You do not need to carry every question. You are allowed to rest. Feel the gentle nearness of God, like a warm light settling at the center of your chest, like hands holding your heart with infinite kindness, like a whisper that says, "You are safe. You are loved. You belong. You are not alone." Rest in that love now. Let it soften you. Let it cradle you. Let it soothe every tired place within. If tonight's journey brought peace to your spirit, you are welcome to return any time, to walk again with Ruth, to rest in the quiet fields of God's presence, to breathe in His tenderness and His endless, unwavering care. When you wish to continue your pilgrimage of peace, simply return, and we will walk again, gently. For now, sleep in the grace of God. Sleep in the safety of His love. Sleep in the warmth of His everlasting peace. May your dreams be soft. May your heart be comforted. May morning greet you with quiet joy. Amen.